Hey, it's Chris Chico, and in this video I'm going to tell you about the 3 things that you can do right now in this outbreak so that you can survive the next 4 weeks or so when potentially the US is going to put a lot of people in quarantine. And we don't know how long this is going to last. My guess it could be anywhere between 2 weeks at the minimum. So how can you survive during this time, especially when you are in a position where you can't work? Now, you may have an online job that now you're able to perform from home, and that's great. Regardless, even if you do have a job or maybe you've lost your job, there are certain things that you can do in order to make sure that your income is not going to be an issue, or your lack of income is not going to be an issue, and that's what I'm going to cover in this video here today. So let's start with number 1. You have to minimize your expenses, and this is a hard thing to do because there are likely a lot of expenses going through your bank account right now you'd like to keep, that are things of comfort, but perhaps you may need to reconsider them. So you may already have, say, Quicken, or maybe if you don't have that, connect your bank account to a service, say like mint.com, download all your transactions, and then meticulously go through each one of them. And you are going to have to make some hard choices about what sort of stuff you're going to keep and what sort of stuff you're not going to keep. Remember that this is not a forever thing. This is just a for now thing. However, look at what things are being charged on your bank account on a monthly basis. If you are a business owner, it's so easy to have in your bank account, in your credit card, things being deducted each and every day, each and every month, and you don't think twice about it. That could add up to $200, $300, $400, $500 a month. And at this stage of the game, every single penny counts because you need to conserve cash as best you can. Now, cutting expenses can only do so much. So the next thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you have as much cash on hand as possible. So that means that you potentially may have credit cards. For now, what I would recommend you do is perhaps to use your credit cards instead of your cash. Because if you're in a pinch, you can always pay the minimum amount or a smaller amount on your credit card, but still retain the cash that you need for these next few weeks. Now, some of you may say, credit is bad, Chico. I don't want to do that. I understand that. So I'm not asking you to be irresponsible. When it comes down to it, you want to be able to save your cash and preserve your cash as much as possible. Number 2, if you are lacking credit and maybe you just have one credit card, maybe consider getting a few more credit cards so that at least you have more credit to work with. Again, being responsible. What you can do is you can apply to 2 or 3 cards at the same time on the same day. It may give you a ding on your credit temporarily. However, if you apply for 3 cards, you don't get 1, but you get 2, and those 2 increase the amount of available credit you have, then your credit score is not going to be dinged or suffer as much as you think it will. Especially if you're a business owner, you want to be able to have that credit available. If you have a card that, say, has $25,000 in available credit, as an example, and let's say that you have $25,000 in hand. And so you're thinking, I got $50,000 to work with. Let me go ahead and just use the cash. In the worst case scenario, if I need it, I'll use a card. But what happens if next week your card issuer decides that there's too much risk out there for them and they decide to lower your credit line and you've been using your cash because you thought you had credit as an emergency. But then one day you wake up and you check your credit card account online and you find that your credit has been reduced by half, has been reduced to a third of what it was before. And you were using your cash thinking you had this credit available. However, if you were using the card, they can't take away what you already used. So that preserves the cash that you have available. If you have a credit line attached to your house, I would recommend perhaps to take some of that money out, put it in your bank account. You might have to pay a small interest payment, but consider that an insurance policy. I lived through 2008, and one of the things that happened many times is that the banks all of a sudden got really scared and they pulled all the credit lines. So what the bank did is that either reduced the credit line or completely eliminated the credit lines. And so what happens now, if you are sitting on some cash at home, you're using that thinking that, oh, I got this credit line attached to my house that I'm going to use in the event that something happens, but then that credit line goes away. Then all of a sudden now you're going to be caught in a bad position. Again, withdraw some money from that equity line to preserve and have there available to you in case the bank gets a little bit squiggly and decides that they're too scared to continue to have you have that open line of credit there. The next thing you can do is take advantage of the help that's being afforded to you. Many of the credit card companies, many of the banks, whoever you owe money to, you can go to and say, you know what, I need some help. I can't make my payment next month. What can you do to help me? Many of them will have, if they don't already have, a plan in place for them to defer payments a month or two to allow the economy to get back up and running. I've seen some documents floating around where they're actually going to, I think Congress was trying to decide if they were going to put a hold on credit reporting during the time of this pandemic and also about 120 days after. So that means that even if the lender messes up and they don't do things correctly on their end and you end up getting late payment, you can always go back and get it taken care of without having to have any sort of impact on your credit. Call your car, your credit card, your mortgage, anybody that you pay money to on a monthly basis, give them a call and find out what they can do for you. If you are renting, you might want to go to your landlord and see what they can do for you. Now, that's a tricky subject, right? Because you still owe money to the landlord. So keep in mind is that if you're dealing with a mortgage company and you tell them, hey, I can't make the payment this month, many times they'll put it on the back end, which it's not that big of a deal, right? Because then if you sell the house in the future, you'll pay that off eventually. However, if you stop paying rent to your landlord, you still owe them that money. You're going to have to pay them that money. I would say err on the side of you paying your landlord and then getting these other vendors like the car companies to take the payments, and what they will typically do is do a forbearance where they'll put it on the back end, because at the end it's a lot easier for you to deal with that on the back end versus if you don't make your payment to your landlord this month and now next month you still owe money for the previous month plus the month current, and it's going to stack up rather quickly, and eventually, even though right now they're not doing any evictions or anything like that, you can put yourself in a predicament there. So I would say take care of your landlord so that way you know that's covered, but work with the other vendors. Leave your landlord as a last resort. Work with the other bigger companies. So now let's assume that you don't have any work. You are in the restaurant industry, you're in the service industry, and now you need to find some work. Now, depending on what the situation and the circumstances are, you still may be able to do food delivery, like say with Uber Eats or some of these other different types of companies. So that's one option. And yes, it's not the best thing to do, but you know what? If you need the money and it makes a difference for you, then you may have to just suck it up for a little bit and do that. You can also go to websites such as Upwork.com, where you can create a profile and now you can do virtual work. So you can do work for other individuals that have online businesses that are not affected as much, and now you can work from home and still be able to at least have an income. It may not be the income that perhaps you had before, but if you consider the fact that if you combine a little bit of income, you decrease your expenses, you get help from other vendors like the credit card company and your car company and your mortgage company, etc., to help you with minimizing your expenses on a per month basis, that may just be enough for you to have the money that you need so that now you can go ahead and survive the rest of the way through. Now, normally in a video like this, I would talk about real estate and how you can get involved with real estate and no money down real estate. However, I don't think it's appropriate for this video. Why? Because right now your priority is to stabilize and to make sure that all of your bases are covered. You can't go out and start a new venture or a new business if you're working in a panic state because you don't know if you're going to be able to afford to keep your lights on or to pay your bills or to put food on the table and you got a family. So you got to take care of that first. Take advantage of what is coming to you in terms of help and support from our country, from the different companies that are out there, so that way you can at least be sure that you're going to survive this outbreak and put yourself in a position where now, when it's starting to be over, now you can have a chance of getting back to normal life without too many problems or too many issues.